South African Federation of Trade Unions General Secretary Zwelinzima Vavi is with us tonight to give us the Federation's reaction to government's U-turn on the Eskom exemption. A very good evening to you, sir. You've welcomed the exemption, but you're still not at all impressed with how Treasury has gone about this issue.
And also, importantly, is that they're saying they are temporarily withdrawing, suggesting that at some point they're going to come back. Remember that they also have exactly the same provision for Transnet, which has already been sold to the private sector, or 20% of it have been sold to the private sector to run the operations that were previously run by Transnet. So we welcome the withdrawal, and we hope that this withdrawal will be permanent, not temporal, and we're going to do everything to ensure that it becomes a permanent withdrawal. We never understood the reason behind the logic. In fact, it was totally illogical. You cannot explain why, at the time when the whole country is focusing on the crisis of Eskom as a result of the rolling load shedding, you suddenly announce that you're going to exempt them from Section 55(2) of the PFMA. It smelled right from the beginning. At the time when there are heavy allegations that have been made by the outgoing CEO of Eskom that said that the ANC is using Eskom as a feeding trough, and that corruption is rampant, and that corruption is to blame for load shedding that has not been resolved and solved for the past 15 years. You come in and reinforce the perception in the public that you want to line up your pockets in darkness and through the cover of an exemption. This was cold. This was an insult to the people of South Africa, and we welcome the fact that there was such an outcry from every trade union federation to every political party, and most importantly from progressive civil society organizations, who said that, hold on, what are you trying to hide behind this exemption of Eskom from the obligation it has in terms of the PFMA to report irregularities? What are you trying to cover? Cannot report corruption, which you are now standing accused, which you yourself say to the country, you are the accused number one when it comes to corruption, and suddenly you come with an exemption of this kind. Look, we've gone to support NUMSA, our affiliate, which have challenged the fact that government is introducing the regulations on the state disaster in court. Now we feel reinforced. We feel that we have been vindicated in our rejection of those regulations, because it's quite clear that government wants to see a repeat of what we saw, all of us saw during the COVID, that the cadres there have no mercy at all when they are stealing. They steal money of people that are in the ICU on oxygen machines. How much more if they now will steal money of people who are dying in the ICU without electricity?
Let me get your thoughts on government and this apparent trend of basically placing the cart before the horse, i.e. making decisions and then having to basically walk away from them or walk them back once there's outrage. There is the issue that we're talking about tonight of the exemption granted by National Treasury, right? There was in the past, in some culture, the issue of a symbol, I think it was a flag that would light up, which was meant to basically foster nation building. I think that was the theme. Recently there was the issue of a Tottenham Hotspurs deal. Yes, that wasn't government but the tourism agency, but that too, after outrage, had to be walked back. And you hear about how there'll be consultation on this case going forward with the Auditor General's office, but you have to wonder why those checks and balances weren't done before going public and gazetting the exemption.
Just imagine, look at the example of the 1 billion that we were to donate to one of the richest European countries' soccer club, Tottenham Hotspurs. And clearly, the intention was not about promoting tourism in South Africa, and it has now been proven by the fact that the COO of the company was going to benefit handsomely, I think to the tune of over 350 million rands of that billion was to go to the company that he has a relationship with. Look at everything else that has been done. Look at the disaster of the procurements during the COVID-19. Look at the fact that Babita Diokara is today no more for exposing corruption that have benefited the ruling party in Ekurhuleni, funding its regional congress there, and suspectedly or allegedly benefiting a range of other personalities linked to the ruling ANC and in that looting of the Tembisa hospital. Look at many other examples. I mean, that the Treasury is withdrawing this is obviously welcome, but we wonder, what were they trying to do in the context where the trust of the public to this government is at its lowest? I was looking at the letter today read by the president, the former president of the ANC, saying that according to the ANC's own internal surveys, 55% of the former supporters of the ANC simply have lost trust in the ANC, precisely because of the stigma of corruption that it has now earned, with obviously flying colors.
And one of the reasons given for the granting of the exemption was that what it would basically do would basically avoid a scenario where write-ups on irregular expenditure, which wasn't necessarily money that went to criminal activity or corruption, would interfere with Eskom's ability basically as far as ability to access funding, credit, i.e. loans, or even what the ratings agency decide about its standing. Now that this has been withdrawn, even if it's temporarily, do you foresee a scenario then where if Eskom is unable to get those monies, it will be the taxpayer who basically has to save it again?
Not at all. Look, we have already been grey-listed because we are seen by the world to be a place where money laundering has become the order of the day, where corruption of the highest order has become normalized in our society. In our view, it will rather do Eskom good if it was go to South Africa and to the rest of the world and say, look, we are transparent, we have nothing to hide, we will investigate the allegations that were made by our CEO, and we will no longer even support the fact that the ANC used its majority in parliament to block an investigation into the corruption allegations to Eskom, and therefore you can find us guaranteeing the fact that your money will not go down the pockets of the elites and who are linked to the ruling party. We think that will do them a good stead instead of damaging them in the eyes of the investors.
Finally, then, another major withdrawal today, government scrapping immediately, excuse me, the declaration of a state of disaster on the electricity aspect. It says because there have already been measures in place that are bearing fruit in response to the energy crisis. Are you convinced?
Sorry, I beg your pardon?
I was asking if you are convinced, Mr. Vavi, of government's explanation today that it's now abandoned the state of disaster declaration for the electricity crisis because the minister, Hossein Suramokgopa, has found that there are measures in place that will indeed bear fruit. Are you convinced that that is why this has now been announced, or is government fearing that it was going to lose in court where the likes of Outer were going to challenge the declaration?
No, they were fearing that there will be another humiliation, and that this humiliation will be yet again another massive embarrassment, in addition to the fact that they can't even keep the most dangerous prisoners inside the prison when they're spending 13,000 rand on each of them every single month. Now, it's a disaster for them, but it's yet another welcome development. And it looks like now we are going to have to be saved by the courts, because electorally they've become very arrogant, and in parliament they are abusing their authority to go against even what the Constitutional Court have previously said. is the responsibility of Parliament to hold the executive accountable and to save the resources of the country in doing so. But now it looks like every time they're doing all of these shenanigans, we must go to court and they will quickly roll back and withdraw from what they were intending to do.
Saftu leader Zwelinzima Vavi, good to have your time, sir. Thank you.